So welcome to tonight's session. I'm pretty excited about having a conversation with Steve Preda. We are talking a lot about his book, Buyable, which I got an advanced copy of it, and I got an opportunity to read quite a bit. And I have to tell you, I was really excited because it's a combination of, it's just jam-packed. And you talk about a lot of the different authors that I've loved and many people have loved over the years, Michael Gerber with E-Myth and Traction, the entrepreneurial operating system, as well as Bluish and Strategy, which was like from forever ago, but it's a classic. And then, of course, you also talk about Jim Collins, which is another one of my favorite authors as well. So it was a pleasure to get the opportunity to actually read this.
Thank you.
You have so many resources for entrepreneurs that I'm just, it's a pleasure to get the opportunity to spend time with you and talk to you, because you've got not only a podcast, but you've got YouTube videos about this. You've got an amazing blog, and now this particular book. And I think every single chapter you had a set of tools that was in there that was available as well.
More or less, yes.
So I know what you've been doing over the over this coronavirus period.
Exactly.
Very, very
busy. Use the time.
So yeah. We're talking about Buyable. There is a difference. So go ahead and explain a little bit about Buyable versus sellable. And even you talk about it that you want to build a buyable business, even if you don't want to sell your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So so the difference is obviously the word that most people use is sellable. And when I was an investment banker earlier in my career, then that's what we were focused on, building sellable businesses. And then what happened was sometimes we sold the business, and then the entrepreneur ended up regretting it, selling it, because they realized they actually didn't have a good purpose outside of building their business, and suddenly they got into this vacuum. I also personally experienced what it's like when your business is not viable, because my business was not viable. So what is this difference? So the idea here is not to sell your business. The idea is to create an asset which gives you options. That's the idea. And whether you ever want to sell your business or not, I would encourage you to consider building a viable business from the get-go, because that's the only type of business worth building. Why on earth would you build an unviable business which doesn't give you options, which is not profitable, which is not growing, which is not fun to run, where you are neck deep in the day-to-day firefighting? And, when having a business is such a huge opportunity, it's a vehicle for you, and you can craft any kind of life you want when you have a sustainable business. Obviously, sometimes you have a business which is just in the wrong industry and it's going down the drain. You own a business manufacturing a telephone booth. That's not going to be a great business, whatever you do. But most of the time, you have a sustainable business. You just have to figure out how you use it as a vehicle to your ideal life. So figure out your ideal life, and then I help you with the Buyable program through the book to make it into the vehicle to get you there. And the sooner you're gonna figure that out, the sooner you're gonna get there.
So talk about our entrepreneurs and any unbuyable red flags that you see are most common for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so there are a lot of red flags. Maybe the actual example. So I talk in the book about one of my former clients. I changed the name to protect the innocent. So the owner is Mrs. Juhas, and she owned this company called Parts Co, which was a manufacturer in the automotive sector. And it was in a nice little niche, very profitable. It's about $5 million revenue, about $2.5 million profit, very profitable. And she approached us about 10 years ago, and she said that she had to undergo an operation, and she had a 9 months window, and she basically didn't know whether, she was 70 years old, she didn't know whether she was going to make it. And the family, because of the family and everything, I didn't want to burden them with it. So she said, I want to sell this business now, and you've got 9 months to figure this out. but that's my deadline. So we looked at the business first. We got really excited. 5 million, 2.5 million profit. Wow, that's going to be so easy to sell, very profitable, dominated its niche. And then when we looked at it more closely, we realized there were some really huge issues in the company. One was that there was no management team to speak of. So Mrs. Juhász was micromanaging the business. There weren't even middle managers. There were not even a college graduate other than her in the business. So that was a huge problem. Secondly, the business wasn't financially transparent at all. So the books were, there was an accountant who did a very sloppy job. The numbers didn't add up, and there was no consistency of presentation, and there were even some cash transactions going on that you didn't want to know about. So it was not transparent. It was a huge problem. And the third issue was that the company had a customer concentration. So one of its biggest customer was about 60% of revenue, and they were too dependent on this customer. And on top of that, the customer wanted to deal with Mrs. Juhász because she was the person they trusted. So it was a very complicated situation, and we basically told her that we might not even be able to do it, but even if we did it, it would be like a 2 or 3 times multiple as opposed to the 6 times that we were expecting on the face of it. And eventually we tracked down a former CEO who was an automotive CEO, and he wanted to come back from retirement. And we also found another investor who was in an adult entertainment sector, and they wanted to have investments that they could actually talk about in the press. So they wanted to support the CEO, and we managed to sell the business, but it was a much lower. If the business was buyable, if we only had 18 to 24 months to fix all the issues, the company would have been worth twice as much easily.
Oh, that's actually a sad, painful story. But are you saying that's pretty common then?
It is common. So, how common it is, I can tell you that out of basically, you have about a 10% chance, if you own the average company, that your business will sell in its lifetime, in the business's lifetime. So the average lifetime for a business is 8.5 years. It's longer for Fortune businesses at 18 years, but for businesses on average 8.5 years. And based on the number of businesses being sold every year, there is only a 1 in 10 chance. And that's abysmal. It means that most businesses end up not being valuable after the owner is gone, or they are not even viable for the owner. So there's a huge problem here. And it's actually not difficult to make a business viable. You just have to follow the recipe, and there's a lot of things to do, but you have time to do it. You don't have to do it within 12 months. Mm-hmm. Depending on where you are, maybe you have 3, 5, 10, 15 years to do these things. So you just be systematic about it and just do it. And eventually you'll end up with a very valuable asset that will make your dreams come through.
So Steve, are you thinking that these businesses, that the average is 8 to 10 years, why is that? Are they losing focus, or is that just common? Can those businesses stay viable and stay viable longer than that?
So this happens because businesses hit the ceiling. So as you grow the business, most businesses, and this is what the email technicians, not entrepreneurs, technicians who were really good at their profession. Let's say they were a carpenter, and then they created this carpenting business, and they didn't realize that in order for the business to be successful, they have to stop being a carpenter, and they first had to become a manager, and then had to become an entrepreneur. So one of the problems is that people hit the ceilings. They no longer can grow as a carpenter. It's too much to do, too little time. And if people don't transform themselves into the manager and into an entrepreneur, then they are stuck. Sometimes they have to change the business because they are in the wrong industry. They're being disrupted, or they have to figure out how they can attract people and then teach them the business. So not systemizing the business is also an issue, a big issue, and not creating a vision for the company. So it's all about the personal vision. You want then you have a person with a vision, but not a company. So you have to figure out what the company's vision is, so that people can align around it and they know where to go. Most businesses don't have that, and then the employees, they don't know where to go. They can only ask the CEO what to do, and as long as the CEO didn't tell them what to do, they have no reference system to make decisions in, because there's no vision. So you have to figure out the vision. Actually, there are 7 management concepts that you need to implement in your business to make it well orchestrated.
Mhm.
And these are around 3 areas. The first area is the foundation. So Jim Collins, you mentioned Jim Collins. Jim Collins said that start by getting the right people on the bus, getting the wrong people off the bus, and putting the right people in the right seats. So that's the foundations, culture and structure. Then the second phase is the direction. So when you got the right culture and right structure, where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, it's the vision and the strategies. The vision is the purpose of the organization. It's the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, the long-term kind of North Star you're going to. And then the vivid vision. So the medium-term plan, which Cameron Harold calls it the vivid vision. So painting that picture in full color and technicolor, so that your people see exactly what this business is going to look like, so they can go and create it. And then the strategy, how you're going to get there, how you're going to differentiate yourself, what are the goals you're going to set, how you're going to get the resources, whether it's people, whether it's financial resources or assets. And then how do you make sure that you monitor things don't go off track? So that's the strategy. And then the third phase is, I call it production. So it's the execution, the processes, systemizing the business, and alignment. So execution is all about making sure you set quarterly rocks, quarterly priorities that people are focused on. And then you have a scoreboard, so you know every week whether you win the week or you won the week or not. And then you have a meeting rhythm. It's really important that you create this peer accountability in your team, that every week they get together and they hold each other accountable, so you don't have to make the heavy lifting yourself. And then the processes, so systemizing your business. It's important that you figure out what the playbooks and the checklists are, so that people who don't have your intuition and your experience, they can still do most of the things in the business. That's how you can leverage yourself in business and elevate yourself to the strategic realm. And finally, the alignment. So everyone in the business is rowing the same direction. They understand the vision, they understand the strategy, they are executing, and they are fully aligned with the plan and getting there. And that's the healthy team that is aligned. That's the 7th management concept. And if you implement these 7, and then you're going to have a great business, which is a well-oiled machine.
And you do that a lot. I've watched you do that with the entrepreneurial operating system quite a bit, all of the different techniques that you talked about. So thank you for those, and thank you for putting them in the book.
So just a word on this. So the entrepreneur operating system is it's a cookie cutter way of implementing these management concepts. And I call it a management blueprint. So there are 10 management blueprints I talk about in the book. One of them, the entrepreneur operating system. The other one is the E-Myth that we talked about, and there's scaling up, and there are many others. Essentially, they give you a framework to implement these management concepts in a systematic way. And you can choose whichever you like, or you can choose a combination of these management blueprints to actually implement these management concepts. And this is how you orchestrate your business.
So your book was a little tough because I was trying to pull out sort of the most valuable nuggets out of it. And because we only have a short period of time to really talk. And So I have a few questions that I have, but I wonder out of all of them, which ones do you think are the most valuable nuggets out of your entire book? And I know you've packed it full.
Yeah, I know it's too much information. So
Well, if there was only one thing that they were going to implement right away, what would be like read this chapter, implement this specific nugget?
yeah, I would say so. There are four parts to the book. There is figure out your future, orchestrate the business, instill value drivers in the business, and then transition, harvest the business and transition. And I would say the most important is to start at the beginning. So figure out what do you want to do, what your ideal life looks like. And if you figure it out, then all the tools are there to help you get there. So that's the most important thing. So if money was no object, if time was no object, how would you spend your waking hours? What would be your purpose? Uh, Whether it's the business, it's in the business or outside of the business. Is it philanthropic? Is it being with your family and friends? Is it what is it? So what would that look like? And if you figure it out, then you can calculate your magic number. What is it going to take to get there? You can then use that magic number to figure out where you go from the value of the business today. There's another tool to value your business.
Mm-hmm.
And what is going to be the future value that you need to achieve to harvest your magic number. Then you orchestrate your business, you instill the value drivers, and then you harvest it. So yes, it's a long process, but I think it starts with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. What is the ideal life? And then it's just step by step from there.
I was going to guess value drivers. I really was. But you're right. And I appreciate the tool that you have in there in terms of calculating your business, because that is a tough one that I see most people really struggling with. So thank you for that. But talk about value drivers,
Yeah.
because that one, and maybe because it was so new to me, um, I get becoming indispensable to your customers. But if you were just to focus on the value drivers for a minute.
Yeah. So value drivers, growth drivers. So the first one I want to mention is differentiation. So most businesses don't think about. They think, oh yeah, we are different because we do better customer service and we have better operations and we take care of our customers and our product is really high quality. But these are not differentiators because everyone else wants that. You look at the technology companies and Japan and Korea, the electronics companies, and they all have very high operational excellence. They have Six Sigma, but since everyone is doing it, they keep competing and the margins keep going down. So how do you differentiate? And there are a few tools here. One is the mind share. So what are the words in the mind of your customers? And Vern Harnish talks about these. And Starbucks is an example. They branded even the servers, right? They call them barista. They even branded the cup. They say it's a venti cup, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you differentiate your business? How do you what are the words that you own in the mind of your customer? What is your one phrase strategy? So Southwest Airlines talks about wheels up. It's everything is subordinated to this idea of wheels up, keeping the planes in the air more. That's how they make the money. It's all about the planes. So no food service, wheels up, no luggage fees, no is subordinate to this idea of one phrase strategy. So how do you differentiate your business? Now the other thing is the target market. So are you really clear on your target market? You cannot be all things to all people. So who do you really want to serve? Who are the best, the ideal customers for you? And figured out the demographic, the geographic, and the psychographic profile of these customers, and then target your messages to this target market. A third value driver is creating the consistency in the business. It's Jim Collins talks about the 20-mile march. And the story of 1911, the race to the Antarctic, and Scott and Amundsen. Scott was a British explorer, Amundsen was a Norwegian, and they employed different strategies. Scott, he was kind of opportunistic. If the weather was great, then the team would march 70 miles, as much distance as they could cover. If the weather was bad, they would stay in their tents. Amundsen, who took a totally different track, he said, we're going to march 20 miles every day, whatever is the weather. If it's beautiful weather, we're going to goof off in the afternoon. We'll have some fun. We'll play some soccer, whatever. But if the weather is bad, we're still going to march because we want to maintain our spirits and our momentum. And what ended up happening, Amundsen's team got there first, and they got back with food to spare. And Scott's team, they died on the way back. They actually ran out of steam. They ran out of energy. So 20-mile march is a really good process of figuring out how fast to grow, because many businesses overgrow, and then they run out of cash, or they burn their people out, and then they come crashing down. So figure out what is the maximum sustainable growth rate, and then hit it every time. That's a growth driver. Then there's the SMAC recipe. What is that's another Jim Collins thing. What is the kind of secret sauce for your business? How do you run your business? And if you figure that out, then you can grow in a much more sustainable fashion. How do you create a talent attracting culture? It's all about the people. And if you're not attracting A players in your business, and you're not promoting A players, you don't create a culture of A players, you're gonna fall behind of other companies that do. And there are ways of doing that. You can top grade your people. Internal sales engine is a big one. I've seen, there was a client I had who ran a PR agency. And when he started his business, he started with 3 small companies, startups themselves. And he did such a wonderful job that those companies kept growing, and they ended up being $100 million companies. So what happened to his agency, he just kept growing with these clients. And he didn't have time for business development because there was so much demand for growth. And then what ended up happening when these businesses, they went beyond 100 million, but then one of them got acquired by another company, which had their own PR team. So they no longer needed my client. And then a second company went into Chapter 11 because their industry they were in the photo processing, and they got disrupted. And suddenly he was down to a single customer, and he had to close his business because he couldn't sustain his business. And because he didn't have an internal sales engine, he hired people, but they didn't work out. They hired an external company, but it let them down. He didn't make the time, and that made his business very unstable.
Wow.
So these are some of the growth drivers, value drivers. There are others. Be sure you pick the right industry, which is not going to be disrupted soon. And I talk about how to do that as well. And there are other growth drivers. It's a big topic.
I know you could talk about this the entire time. I got 2 more questions, so I want to switch gears just a little bit.
Perfect. Is it recording? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's several chapters that I really liked. And one of them was groom your business. And I love how you said, I'd left the best for last. And you said, it's the most important grooming strategy of all. And if you only have one suggestion in this chapter, embrace this one. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yes. Keep running your business. Yeah. Keep your foot on the gas. Yes.
Yeah. But you do see that a lot. I mean, where people they're tired and they're selling their business, and so they lose their vision and they kind of lose their focus, and you don't have a vision because you're selling it. So I loved how at the end of every chapter you gave us key ideas and key takeaways. Thoughts on this one?
Yes. So what I saw was that people got excited about that there is this light at the end of the tunnel. So they're now going to sell the business, and then they can do everything they wanted to do because they're going to get all that cash. And they, that was a huge mental shift for them, and they stopped focusing on the business. They got this false sense of security. We're going to sell the business and everything's going to be fine. And they lost their paranoia that kept them in business for so many years, being always on a high alert, and it's something that initially it's not visible because there is a certain momentum of the business, there's an inertia, but as an entrepreneur, you know that if you're not all the time focused on moving the business forward, it's going to lose momentum, and then it's going to be too late to correct. It's going to fall off a cliff. And that's what happened several times. So they had this thing that, okay, we're going to do everything's going to be fine. Plus, they got distracted by the process of selling the business, which is more interesting than the day-to-day, talking to the investors, and it was all very exciting stuff. They got caught up in it. And then the numbers started to soften. Then those investors who were courting them and looked like such nice people, they suddenly started turning the screws on them and renegotiating the price. And then you're in a trap because you've got a falling business. And if you back out of the deal, then you will have to get back for next 18 months to course correct the ship. And it's going to push your exit date out. And the economy might go belly up in the meantime. So it's a very risky thing. So that's the biggest thing. If you find someone that you can trust, who will run the process for you, and just keep focusing on the business, hunker down. It may be 6 months, maybe 12 months, maybe 18 months, 24 months at the most. Just keep focusing on it, and then you're going to get there. Probably earlier than you thought. But if you lose your focus, then it's going to drag out, and it's going to be very, very nasty.
So your last chapter, in my mind, kind of goes hand in hand. And most people, I haven't seen anyone really talk about it. You titled it "Live Your Purpose," but I loved the conversation of the different ways that you can sell your business, but then you can stay on as a potential investor. You can continue as the CEO, and you had several different topics in there that I think most people don't think about, and I don't think most people have even talked about it. Do you want to spend a minute on that?
Yes. So when you're an entrepreneur and you spend the last 15, 20 or more years building this business, you don't realize how much of your energy went into it. It became a way of life. I mean, we all know what an entrepreneur's life is like, right? Because a way of life, it's an all-consuming process. And however frustrating it often is, and however tired you feel, it's actually a huge driver. It gives you a purpose. It's a very meaningful process. And what happens is if you decide to let go of your business, even to let go of the control of it, maybe you stay in it, but someone else is going to control it, it's going to change everything, because you will lose that major focus in your life. And then you have to find something which is at least as good as that. And it's not that obvious where you can find that, because you basically built this thing up. It's a huge lever for you. You actually have a big impact through other people. And when you lose that, then you become very small again. And maybe you come up with a new idea, but it's going to be small and it's going to be less impactful initially. So it can leave a huge vacuum in your life. So that the first point is figure out exactly what is going to be your more compelling future than what you're doing now. And if you find that, all power to you, then you can go for it. If you don't find it, then maybe figure out how can you stay in your business, but do it in a way that serves you better, that's more fun for you, that's more meaningful for you. And find your place in the business. It could be maybe you're the integrator, you're the CEO because you love to run the business and be engaged with all your people and hitting your numbers. Or you're more of a visionary type. You want to stay at the strategic level. Someone else to figure out whom to talk to and what's the next thing for your business and where your industry is going. Or you're neither of these. I know a successful entrepreneur here in Richmond who built a huge law firm, a national law firm with 55 offices. And then he decided he didn't actually like running the business. So he first found the CEO for him. And then he decided he didn't really like to be the chairman of the board because ultimately the buck stopped with him there. So he found someone else instead of him. And he went back into the business and he went back to the type of cases that he really loved. He still works on these kind of cases, venture capital and capital raising for small businesses, startup companies, and this kind of stuff. And he loves doing that. So he was the major shareholder. He went back into the business to do that. He's got other people run it for him. So figure out what's your place in your business is. And then if you know that, then you can move the chess pieces in a way so that you can get yourself into this position. Nevertheless, if you're no longer the controlling shareholder, you have to let go of it. You have to let go of the idea of everything has to be in a way that you think makes sense because someone else owns it. Make peace with it.
Which is a very difficult thing to do, which is the reason why I love that it was your last chapter in the book. So thank you for that. Is there anything that you'd like to leave them with? You have so much in this book, and I tried to pick out what I thought were the most valuable pieces. I hope I hit the nail on the head, but is there anything I missed? Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? I'm grateful for your passion of how much you love helping people build fast-growing businesses.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. This certainly is my passion. No, I think we hit the salient points. And I think the main message is that there is a process. So don't worry about it. There is a process and you can start different points wherever you are. So some of your, your companies, clients, members, they're gonna be at the very beginning when they have to figure out what they even want to do and how their business even gonna work. And there are others who are already running a business for 10, 15 years, and they just have to raise their head and okay, be a little bit more intentional about how they move forward. Wherever you are, just follow the process, take the steps, and figure out. You can go on and check the Buyability assessment on buyabilityassessment.com, and you can answer the 40 questions, and then you'll see what areas you need to work on in your business. And there are also suggestions there what you can do. If you're interested in the book, you can go on Amazon. It's available in all the formats: Audible, paperback, Kindle. Or you can go on buyablebusiness.com and you can download the first 40 pages, and that gives you the high-level overview of the book and give you a couple of stories. So you can start there, but there is a process, and just follow the process and you're gonna get there. And just leave yourself enough time, and you can turn your business into whatever asset you want.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Steve, for all of your time and all of the nuggets that are in each one of these chapters too. And thank you for the book.
You're very welcome.
You've done for people. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Kathie. You're being kind. I don't know if I deserve all that praise, but I hope people will like the book.
Well, you really have taken a tremendous amount of all of, I think, the greatest authors around, and then you've put your stories inside of it and your wisdom and your knowledge, and you have made all of these different nuggets. I'm gonna have to read it a couple more times.
Well, thank you. I'll send you the new version, because as you saw, I've got a black cover now. It's I changed 2 chapters in it, so yeah, read the new version. Maybe it's better.
Awesome. Thank you, and thank you again for everything that you did.
Thank you, Kathie. And if you guys have any questions, listeners, I'm on LinkedIn, and you can reach out, or through my website, stevepreda.com. You can reach me and ask some questions. I'm happy to engage with you.
Perfect. Have a great evening. Talk to
All
you
right.
soon. Bye, Steve.
Bye.